All opinions expressed on any program are those of the producer and or persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of DCTV. All producers and guests appearing on programs provide information and opinions based on information they consider to be reliable. DCTV does not affirm the completeness and accuracy. All DCTV members agree to adhere to DCTV's statement of compliance and are participants in a community medium forum where they're exercising their freedom of speech.
Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Udis, in this series on the Network of Global Corporate Control. Today's program is about Egypt. Egypt was caught up in the struggle to hide reality from us. I've been at the very center of that struggle because I'm the overseer mandate trustee of the world's wealth that was hidden from us. Thank you to DCTV, Carmen Stanley, project director, Mo Jackson, studio director, and Carmen is also on audio and teleprompter today. I'm going to take a few minutes to set the stage because it's just as important to know how this information about the world's wealth was hidden as it is to learn about it. The network of global corporate control, a mega conglomerate of the 60 central banks and the Vatican, and the Society of Jesus, and the bloodline families have been systematically hiding reality from us. In 1986, I was hired into the World Bank by an Egyptian lawyer named Ibrahim Shihada, who had previously been the general counsel of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. I was brought into the World Bank because I wrote a legislative history about the G77, which is 134 countries. Could you go back a little bit? This is scrolling a little too fast for me. Thank you. 1 year after Shihada brought me into the World Bank, I was introduced to the Egyptian representative on the World Bank's Board of Executive Directors, and I've been working with the boards of the World Bank and IMF ever since. I say boards because there are 3 levels at the World Bank and IMF: the 25 resident members of the Board of Executive Directors and the 189 members of the Board of Governors representing each country, and these Board of Governors meet semi-annually. There's also a 25-member development committee that represents the Board of Governors. This is all in an attempt to prevent corruption. I consult regularly with all of these levels of governance at the World Bank and IMF, and I'm authorized to speak for all of them as the overseer mandate trustee of the Global Debt Facility containing the world's wealth. I also speak for the beneficiaries of the Global Debt Facility. I'm careful to decide the minimum that's required, and I've said that all of the decisions are going to be revisited when humanity has decentralized. I proved over time to the world's representatives at the Bretton Woods institutions that I was going to do my best with this weighty responsibility. The Bretton Woods institutions are another name for the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. Bretton Woods is the name of the hotel in New Hampshire where the conference agreeing to establish the World Bank and IMF was held in 1944. At that conference, it was also agreed to abolish the Bank for International Settlements. A group of 60 central banks belong to the Bank for International Settlements. Last week, we discussed how Jose Rizal and Ferdinand Marcos deposited the world's wealth in a trust called the Global Debt Facility with the boards of the World Bank and IMF. The network of global corporate control has tried to steal the world's wealth through corrupt people at the World Bank and IMF. These people are supervised by and report to the boards like Lagarde and Kim. Lagarde and Kim were fired for exceeding their authority. They were also bankrupted with commercial liens. These liens are valid despite empty threats from Jesse White, a corrupt agent of the banking cartel. Jesse White has also been bankrupted under a commercial lien held by the Global Debt Facility. I've been busy defending the world's wealth from the latest lies by an agent of the banking cartel. The day before recording this segment, Cindy K. Courier mounted a false campaign for the second time, lying that she had anything to do with the world's wealth in the Global Debt Facility. I exposed Courier's and the banking cartel's lies again. Another banking cartel agent's failed attempt to steal the world's assets. And this is the report that I got about Courier. 9 hours ago, somebody wrote in my Twitter account. Oh, I'm sorry. No, he wrote it in the comment section of YouTube. Karen, I thought you should be aware of something being promoted by Cindy K. Courier. She's promoting herself as the primary monarch of the world, and she's proposing that we all sign human bonds in return for a monthly income, and that we basically all sign over our personal assets. She's not trying to return us to sound money. She's just trying to create another fiat currency that further enslaves us to the bankers. I won't leave a link to the video, but I will cite the title of it. It was published on November 19, and the title is USPA, Public Order 2018, Budget Review Administration. And my response. Courier already tried and failed to steal the world's gold. And I have a link to where I responded to Courier. What does Egypt have to do with the world's wealth in the Global Debt Facility? An Egyptian lawyer introduced me to the Egyptian representative on the board of the World Bank, and this lawyer and I have remained friends ever since. At the end of the teleprompter, I'm showing you some of the email correspondence that I had with that lawyer. This will give you a flavor, and it's going to show you who's corrupt. The black nobility were descended from ancient Egyptian pharaonic bloodline families. The black nobility hides behind Rothschild, who's only a Knight of the Garter. Ancient Egyptians called themselves Kemet, meaning black. There's been a long-standing opposition to the black nobility from the Moors in Africa. The Moors are a cornerstone in the Coalition for the Rule of Law. Did you see the DCTV segment on the Moors? And I've got a link there in the teleprompter. The corruption in the world's money has been with humanity for a very long time, and our history has been hidden from us. 2 days ago, I reminded you of the project in Moscow State University to correct some of the lies that we've been told about our history. I gave the link to the Chronologia website after YouTube deleted it. And YouTube also deleted detailed instructions on how to access the Moscow State University Chronologia project. Nick Blaine put this information in the comments section of the DCTV archives for the November 6th segment, and YouTube deleted it, so I'm highlighting it in the teleprompter so that you can find what the Russians have to say about our real history. And is this the end of the... Oh, here we go. The morning that I recorded this segment, I retweeted some information that I had posted on Internet Archive a year ago, and Internet Archive removed all of the materials that I posted with them. I put this information at the end of the teleprompter. One of the items was proof that the oldest pyramid in Egypt was nearly 10,000 years old. This date can be calculated with certainty by a sky map which was on a shaft in the Khufu pyramid. The banking cartel thought that humanity would never stand up to them. And so I've given you that tweet with the information about the pyramid, and there's some other information in there. This is proof. And there are links to what the black nobility has been trying to hide from you. Claims that written history date from approximately 5,400 years ago during the Bronze Age are clearly false. I present evidence that reality is different from what's commonly believed in order to prod you into some critical thinking. The moral of this segment is the importance for us to learn how to think critically. It's critical thinking by all of humanity working together as a team that has allowed us to inherit the world's wealth, and it's going to be critical thinking that helps us in the global currency reset to avoid pitfalls that will lead to backsliding. We humanity are now in a reality where we control the world's wealth. There's nothing that the banking cartel can do to regain the world's wealth. The real challenge now is for those of us who know what reality is to keep the people who are still duped by the banking cartel from destabilizing things. And if there's time, I'd like to talk about some critical thinking that's going to help you figure out whether what I'm telling you makes sense or doesn't. I guess we've got time now. Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes. I want to close with a couple of other untidy facts. Talking about reality. Through a combination of factors, we already succeeded in convincing a critical mass of people of the ultimate reality of their wealth in the global debt facility, and that the banking cartel has been lying to them. That means that we are now in a different reality. And the way this happens, it's referred to as the 100-monkey effect. And there's an Italian documentary on that, and it used to be up on YouTube in an English translation, but it's been taken down now. That means because the publisher was probably frightened. His name was Carlucci. And I have a comment that I had put on the internet, and I'd like to read it to you. And that is that I've been talking about things that happened in the past and things that are happening right now, and I'm hoping that that isn't too confusing. When I shift to the present, that's to comment and show you that I've been learning. And there was somebody named Bengt Carlson. I used to call him Bjorn because I wasn't going to reveal his name. And Bengt Carlson used to give me very useful information until he started teaming up with Wolfgang Struck. That's when I knew that Bengt was also controlled opposition. That means that he would tell me some things that were true, and then very important things he would lie to me. Sure enough, Bengt started trying to break up my connection with the United States military forces. That was when I realized I had to hope that there was a critical mass of people who knew the truth, because I broke off dealing with Bengt Carlson. If I had to choose between having a good relationship with the U.S. military and Bengt Carlson, clearly I had to prioritize. And I can tell you right now that I have a very good relationship with the troops in the military, not the corrupt people in the, the brass. And how do I know this? Because every time I go out just about, there's a helicopter that flies directly overhead. They circle my house. It's really quite astonishing how low these military planes fly. And one of the planes that flew early on to catch my attention was the largest aircraft I've ever seen. And I used to see some pretty big aircraft because I used to work at the Export-Import Bank, which financed a lot of Boeing aircraft. And I was going to talk to you about the power transition model. You'll see in the documents that I put at the back of the teleprompter how I was talking with the people that developed that model. And now let me just talk extemporaneously with you about how you know that what reality is what I'm telling you. That's because I could not have possibly come up with a consistent amount of correspondence spanning years and kept that consistent if I wasn't dealing with reality. That's just an impossibility. The world's powers, not the corrupt brass, but the rest of the military, are backing the world's people as we get rid of the corruption in our money. The challenge we now face is to convince people what reality we're all living in. And one of the other things about reality is whatever the banking cartel tries to do now backfires, because we're in reality and they're not, they're lying. And one of the things that I've given people in my social media is I've shown that Donald Trump has absolutely nothing to say to defend himself. It's just from people who are trying to defend him. And when I look to see who these people are, they're people who are Trump supporters. So Trump is not defending himself. And believe me, there are a lot of people that are following this. Why wouldn't they? There are so many things that people can't account for. And I can account for all of them. All of them. That's how you know that I'm talking about reality. I've been answering your questions for the last 3 years on DCTV, and before that on the internet. And I'm coming up with consistent answers, because it's not just me that is answering these things. I'm working with all of humanity. We're all united. And if you think we're not, you better look at the Department of Defense power transition model and its track record, which is there for everyone to see. It's consistently correct. What does this model predict? It predicts who the coalitions are. And I can tell you who the coalition is that is interested in the world's wealth. It's the world's military. One of the things that I've been consistently correct in is evidence about the attempted nuclear detonation off the coast of Charleston in October 2013. And you would also be very interested in what happened in a year ago when the Marines went on the front lawn of the CIA's branch office in Langley, Virginia. The CIA is headquartered in Switzerland because that's the banking cartel. They're foreign enemies. And the people that are on the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they're treasonous. The United States Constitution is not in effect. It has not been in effect since 1871. And the presidents, including Trump, have all been working for the banking cartel. And that includes the judges. The judges, they're not real courts. They're not constitutional courts. When you go into a court, you're on banking cartel territory. And what's more, when you think you're a person in their court, you're not. The judge is only considering the company that was created when the baby's birth was recorded by its parents, and bonds were floated. So when you think you're going into a court, you're really not. The judge is ignoring you, and he's simply paying attention to the lawyers who are required to defend the people. And those lawyers, the entire legal profession, is totally corrupt. Totally corrupt. Some of the people at the top may realize that they're corrupt, and most of the others are just clueless. They don't know that the judges are dealing in maritime law. But if you look at the flags in the courtrooms, they've got yellow fringe on them. That means that they're under maritime law, and the people who were dealing with those judges, they're not really, their cases are not really being heard, and the rights that they think that they have under the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, that's not in effect. We're under, we were under martial law. What happened is the Board of Governors realized that since the Constitution was not in effect, that martial law is not really in place. And right now we're in something called interregnum. That means that there's no legitimate government. And so that's why Donald Trump is not answering any of the things that I say. As a matter of fact, he's Donald Trump, because he didn't answer any of the things I said, he's now bankrupted. And you can see the documents that I mailed to him and bankrupted him. So he's a play actor, and anybody that's sitting and watching the news is owned by the banking cartel. You're just being given a lot of lies by people that are play acting. So when Shakespeare said that all the world is a stage, that is correct, because these world leaders, they're not legitimate, and they're play actors. And one of the people who decided that he wasn't going to go along with this charade, that's the Emperor of Japan, and I can show you the correspondence that I wrote to the Emperor of Japan. And one of the segments that we had was talking about Fukushima, how Fukushima happened, and this is something which is poisoning our oceans, and we have got to address this problem. It's not going to be addressed until we start deploying the assets in the global debt facility to take care of this problem. So this is really a matter of survival for humanity. We have got to come to terms with the reality that I'm telling you about, and the chances that we do this it's in our hands. It depends on whether you're able to develop your critical thinking skills, and if you can, whether you reach out to the people that you know, and don't be surprised when many people that you know don't want to hear anything about it. What you should do with those people is you should simply leave them alone, because they're being subjected to very advanced military technology that makes it very difficult for them to reason. And so just don't waste your time with them. John F. Kennedy had a saying, which is, a rising tide lifts all boats. Let these people be the boats that are lifted, and the people who are able to function and to think critically, it's their responsibility to pay attention and to reach out to others. And when you find somebody who in your area who you can talk to about this, you need to stay in touch with them, and for the duration, because we're going to be working on a lot of things. We're going to be cleaning up this corruption. We're going to be reestablishing our governments. And when I say we, I really mean the people in the local communities first. They're the building blocks. The center is not going to be doing anything other than making sure that the money gets exchanged, the clean money. And this is really essential, because right now, all of the tax money that you pay, it's going to the banking cartel. It's not going anywhere else. It's not being used for the goods and services that you think your government should be providing you. and people want to know where that money's coming from. It's very easy for the banking cartel to come up with money because it's paper money. They just print it. Or they do illegal things. The mafia is part of the banking cartel. And so all of the illegal activities, they're all working in cahoots. And we who are cleaning up the world, we're also all working together. And we're going to learn how to do that. This cleaning up the amount of corruption, this has never been done before. So we're going to have to be tolerant of each other. We're going to have to learn how to work together. We've been working together for a long time, actually. And one of the groups that's working with us is a group of health workers. Our health has been very seriously compromised by the banking cartel, what with chemtrails and many other things, flu shots. These are not for you. They're not to help you. There's traces of mercury in them, and that's why there's such a high level of autism now, because of all these drugs that are going into our bodies that we really can't tolerate. So one of the very big things that's going to change early on in the global currency reset is we're going to get some of the information that we need about our health. There's been cures for cancer. They've been around for since the 20s. And the reason we don't have them is because the pharmaceutical companies want to continue to make a profit. So there's a lot that's going to change very quickly as we all educate each other. And there are other things that are going to take a very long time. It's the amount of corruption that we have, it's so extensive. And we have got to work on this global currency reset peacefully. There's no other way. In today's segment, I've told you about my friendship with two Egyptians who opened up the doors to the World Bank and the world's wealth that was deposited there for us. I'm not afraid to reveal to you what you need to know about our world. A critical mass of people are now working together to realize Jose Rizal's declaration and proclamation of the gift of love. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudis.